Fears of dangerous political organisations infiltrating school curriculums previously galvanised the government into ensuring the likes of Black Lives Matter are barred from the classroom. Now a fresh drive to teach children both sides of the story on matters such as colonialism aims to stop ethnic minority students seeing themselves as victims. Equalities Minister Kemi Badenoch, who's always been a reasoned voice in debates about race and culture, has championed the benefit of learning about the British Empire in a balanced way, as she did during parts of her childhood in Nigeria. That included learning about good things missionaries did for the country as well as the terrible things. Kemi believes the same approach should now be taken in British schools so that history remains about facts rather than the enforcement of a contemporary bias.
History isn't about trying to enforce a particular narrative or view. It's about telling the truth about things that happened. There were terrible things that happened during the British Empire. There were other good things that happened, and we need to tell both sides of the story. In Nigeria, it was actually a very nuanced description that here are the good things that happened, here were these missionaries, these are the things they did, and here are some of the terrible things that happened. There wasn't any sort of attempt to describe British Empire as, look at this really awful, terrible thing that oppressed and victimized us.
Neil Oliver, what do you make of this one?
Well, I think what Kemi Badenoch is saying is absolutely right. History is nuanced. It's shades of grey. You know what's happening in Ukraine, in the war there between Ukraine and Russia is shades of grey. And you know, I don't see any point in reporting black or white in that contemporary story. And likewise with history, I think the only thing we can do is seek to report all sides. I don't think there's any doubting, as Kemi Badenoch says, there's good and bad in the story of the British Empire, and I definitely don't think it's in anyone's benefit. I don't think it's to anyone's benefit to portray the British Empire as just a 100% negative story. Even more pernicious, it's that idea of apportioning the blame for things that happened in the past onto people alive in the present. We've known for since the beginning of time that application of blame in that way is wrong. The Bible, Deuteronomy says, that fathers shall not be put to death for the sins of the children. Children shall not be put to death for the sins of the fathers. That is the point. And that we here in the present, I've always thought that we're not entitled either to take pride in what was done by the people in the past, nor is it our responsibility to be ashamed on our own behalf of what was done in the past. We are alive in the present. The only thing we can do is to seek as best we can to understand what happened in the past. And that is always shades of grey. And I think Kemi Badenoch is quite right. There were very bad things that happened in the past in the realm of the British Empire, but there were also very good things that happened. There were positives and negatives, and it's absolutely appropriate that both sides of the story be told. And she's absolutely right that to raise a part of the population as victims and to feel that they are only the victims of the past, I don't think is serving the people alive in the present.
Because, Neil, you have to admit, post-BLM and with this woke wave taking over our universities and our entire education system, the word colonialism, it's become a dirty word, really. None of these woke folk associate anything positive with it.
No, and that's obviously you can't. That is obviously wrong. To paint it as being just only a uniformly black picture, just a negative picture, just that all that was done was bad, was deliberately bad, that the British Empire was always and only malign, is simply an inaccurate picture. And it's also, I think it's also conspicuous the way in which the only empire that's being portrayed in this way is the British Empire. The British Empire is just one of many. There have been empires bestriding parts of the planet, for 5,000 years and more, and each one of them is a story to be told of good and bad, and the way in which the British Empire is only portrayed in negative terms, seems completely inappropriate to me. There was the Ottoman Empire, there was the Austro-Hungarian Empire, there was the Roman Empire. There have been empires, since the beginning of civilization, and for some reason, it's the British Empire and the British Empire alone that is being denigrated and run down as having been the only empire that had sins and black marks against its name, and there's some kind of prejudice there as well.
No, there really is. There really is. Neil Oliver, fascinating as ever. Thank you so much for being here this week. We'll speak next week.
Thank you, Dan.
Neil Oliver, host of Neil Oliver Live on GB News 7 o'clock Saturday night.